Hello, and welcome back to another episode of the Chase Joy podcast. My name is Flor, and if you're new here, welcome. Welcome to the podcast. Welcome to the community. If you are not new, thank you guys for coming back and listening. I wanted to give you guys an update. If you have noticed, I did not post last week, and I don't know, I felt like I needed a break already, and was 6 episodes in and I realized, whoa, this is a lot. I have really loved getting on here and recording, but the editing process and getting all of that done on the back end has been taking me a long time. I feel like I needed to take a step back and look at everything, look at the big picture. And I realized that I was just doing way too much. And it's just me. It's just Flor. And I still have to work and have my kids. And we've had so many activities going on in our life that I just really needed to take a step back and take a little bit of a break. And I think for now, until I get things moving along a little bit better, I'm going to do every other week. My goal is to come back to every week, but we'll see how that goes. But yeah, I wanted to give you guys an update on things in my life. I always like to give you guys a little recap. Last week, it was our last meeting for our Rooted small group that I've been going to. It was a total of 12 weeks, I believe. And I feel like it flew by. We really had a great time. I feel like we learned a lot. Honestly, one of the things that I prayed for that small group was for it to touch my husband's heart somehow. In my personal life, felt like I was getting into the groove of doing certain things like waking up in the morning and spending time with God and reading the Bible and doing devotionals. And all of those things were habits that I was trying to develop for myself as a way to make sure that I was really putting in the time and effort to have a relationship with God. But when this small group started, I really wanted it to help my husband as well. We are on different paths or different journeys, right, to get closer to God. And I was so happy at the end of the program because God answered so many prayers for me. He has really been working in my husband, and I see changes in him. And I don't know if I mentioned it the last time, but I bought a Bible several months ago that is a word for word translation. I bought it so that I could reference that Bible with the one that I'm reading. One day I just felt called, go give him the Bible. So I was like, okay. So I went to go give him the Bible, and it was one of those like, hey, here's the Bible. I bought it and I'm thinking about you and I hope you can read it. I don't by any means want to be pushy, and I wanted him to at least know that I care about him and his salvation too. And so I wanted to give him the Bible so that he can start getting to know God in a different way. I gave it to him, no expectation. And on the day of my birthday, he actually told me that he had been reading the Bible, and I literally was crying. It was the best birthday gift that he could have ever given me. And I was, of course, just so thankful and grateful to God for allowing that to happen. That was really an answer to my prayers. And then last week, on the last day of Rooted, my husband was picked along with some other people to go up and share the transformation that they've gone through. And it just made me so emotional. We were in the middle of worship and they brought all these individuals to the front, and I was just bawling. I was just so happy, and just thinking about it right now, it makes me emotional. But God answers prayers. I just want to encourage you that you have to just be persistent in prayer because God listens. He does it on his time, but when he reveals what he's doing and those little glimpses of what he's doing, I don't know, it's so amazing. I was really happy. That was last week. So going back, some other stuff has been going on, and I wanted to fill you guys in on how things are working right now in my life. I see God in everything that I'm doing. He's been answering prayers. He's been giving me confirmation. But it's been in my heart that I've always wanted to have an online business. I wanted to have a business in general, but specifically I wanted an online business because I really value my time and my family. And I've had jobs before where I'm working all the time and making great money, but then I'm working all the time and then I don't see my kids or I don't have time to do things for myself. I've let my health deteriorate before and I don't want to do that. When I came into the online space several years ago, I got a glimpse of what it felt like to have a business online. Just recently, about 2 weeks ago, this thought came into my head and I was like, God, I don't want to do this if it's not your will. But what God has been revealing in my life is how all of these things that I learned from the time that I started being online till now, I felt like I had invested so much time and money and effort into these courses and education and things that I felt really interested in, but then it never led anywhere. And for the majority of last year, I remember thinking about how much money and time I invested in those things and feeling I was so dumb. I can't believe I did all that. I just wasted money and I wasted my time and this is all for nothing. And God really reminded me about why he does everything that he does. And I truly believe right now that he is calling me to use all of those things that I learned over the last couple of years to serve others in a way that really fills me up as a person. Even the podcast has a lot to do with it, obviously, but it's only part of the bigger plan. And I don't know his big plan, but I'm starting to see little glimpses of it. And it's such a nice feeling to see that I understand why I am the way that I am, why I'm genuinely curious all the time, why I deep dive into topics, my love for marketing and setting up systems, all of that stuff, graphic design, all of this stuff has been on my radar for years. I'm just super excited for the future. If you all want more information about what I'm doing, I'm going to be posting a lot more about that on my social media. So follow me on that. I have the link in the description. But yeah, I'm super excited. And that kind of goes into today's topic. There's two things that I want to talk about because I do think that your calling or your purpose is something that all of us are curious about. What are we supposed to be doing? Sometimes we see what other people are doing and we think, well, we're not equipped. We think we're not special like them. So we think that we don't have a purpose or that we are supposed to be living the way that it is right now. And that's it. This is what life is. The first part I'm going to go over is I've been reading Matthew for several weeks now. I've been reading it much slower than I did the first time and really studying it and taking it a little bit at a time. This part is in Matthew 10:2-4. And it says, Jesus called his 12 disciples together and gave them authority to cast out evil spirits and heal every kind of disease and illness. Here are the names of the 12 apostles. First, Simon, also called Peter, then Andrew, Peter's brother, James, son of Zebedee, John, James's brother, Philip, Bartholomew, Thomas, Matthew, the tax collector, James, son of Alphaeus, Thaddeus, and Simon the Zealot, Judas Iscariot, who later betrayed him. Okay, so that's what it says. I've been reading the Life Application Bible and I loved what it says because it says the list of Jesus's 12 disciples doesn't give us many details. And it's true, right? It just has the name and then some of it will say who they're related to just to give some context. But it doesn't really tell us anything impressive about them. They're just these people that Jesus called to follow him. It talks about, for example, Matthew, the tax collector, Simon the Zealot, and how Jesus calls people from all walks of life. So it could be fishermen, political activists, it could be tax collectors, you name it. Jesus calls common people, regardless of how wealthy you are, how smart you are. It doesn't matter. He calls everybody. What I liked that it said is that today many people think that only certain people are fit or qualified to follow Jesus. But this was not the attitude of the Master himself. God can use anyone, no matter what their background or training may be. When you feel unprepared or unqualified to do what you feel God is calling you to do, remember He often uses ordinary people to do His extraordinary work. What I like about this is in our class, Rooted, we talked about how sometimes we're being called to do what we're doing right now in your work, in whatever it is that you do in your daily life. Sometimes that is our calling, but we're supposed to be using it to serve others, right? To do God's work here on earth. Some people may think, but that's not what so and so is doing on a big stage. And that's the thing, that not everybody's going to be called to do things on a big stage. God also uses people to do things in where you're at right now, in talking to your coworkers about God, in talking to the students that you teach, in talking about God's message to your clients that you serve. There's so many things that you can be doing right now, and that may be your calling, but you need to be bold about your faith. And I think that a lot of us, because I felt like this at one point, we feel we can't be bold about our faith because we feel like people are going to judge us or that we're going to push people away. But you also don't know the impact that you can have by doing so. I already see it in the little time that I've been doing the podcast and just being bold about my faith, how little things that I say will impact somebody to say, hey, you know what? I think I need to pick up the Bible. Or, hey, you know what? I miss church, but I'm going to go to church. Or, you know what? I have been lost, but I'm glad that you posted that message because it's encouraging me to get closer to God again. And at the end, that's what we want to do. We are not the wisdom. We are not the master, but by saying certain things, it helps prompt somebody to take the next step or to take action. And ultimately, what we should be doing is to be fisher of men, right? The other thing that I like that it says is Jesus called his 12 disciples. He didn't draft them, force them, or ask them to volunteer. He chose them to serve him in a special way. Jesus calls us today to follow him and to imitate his ways of sacrifice and service. He doesn't twist our arms and make us do something that we don't want to do. We can choose to join him or remain behind. When Jesus calls you to follow him, how do you respond? And when I read that, I'm like, yes. So many times I felt a call to say something, to do something, and I didn't. Oh, like, I'm not going to do that right now. They're going to think I'm weird. And now when I feel that little call or that tug to say something, to do something, I do it. And if I look weird, then it is what it is. But to be honest with you, I haven't felt that. And it's such a great feeling to do it because you know that you're doing it for the audience of one, right? You're doing it for God, and whether the person responds well to it or not, you did it as an act of obedience. And most of the time, even if the other person doesn't respond with anything, they may just stay quiet, or sometimes they may not respond in the way that you want to. But the fact that you planted that seed and gave that comment or did that act, or just, in general, serve them or love them in the way that Jesus would, that on its own can be so impactful in somebody's life. I really love that. I want to encourage you guys to look at your life right now. What are you doing in your everyday? And what can you do to serve God? God wants us to love one another, and God wants us to serve one another. So how can we do that? How can we do that in a way that honors God? The other day I made a comment to one of my friends who is a teacher, and I told them sometimes all you need to do or all you can do for your students is to just pray over them. The way that things are now in the school system, sometimes they want to push people away from talking about God. But even if you're not giving a lesson on God, you can just pray over your students or your classroom. A practice that I've been trying to do, I don't do it every day because I forget, to be honest with you, but as soon as I get that thought, I will do it, is I pray and I just surrender my day to God before I go to work. And I'll say, God, please let me see others the way that you see them. Please let me respond to others the way that you would. Help me to show love, to show kindness, to serve others. I ask him to just help me to love other people the way that he would love them, to not be judgmental, to serve others just willingly with a happy, joyful heart. I know at work, it can be hard sometimes when you have people that are rude. You can have people that are having a bad day. I know in the workplace, it's very easy to say, well, I don't think I can make any difference here. everybody's rude and everybody's so mean or everybody's negative. But here's the thing, God tells us that we are the light of the world. We should be going into our daily life at work, for example, and being the light. People should see you and say, hey, you know what? That person is different. And sometimes, yes, people are having a bad day, but the way that Jesus would want us to respond is to maybe take a moment before you react with emotion and say, this person may be having a really bad day and I don't know about that. And instead of being rude back, I can be loving and kind and get them on their way and pray for them. This also applies to parents that are stay-at-home parents. This applies to you. You know, there is so much that you can do as a mother, as a father, changing their diapers. All of that stuff is God honoring because you're serving others willingly, because you're loving others, because you're stewarding the things that God gives you. That's something that I've been opening up my eyes to, because sometimes you feel like, oh, there's nothing important about the mundane tasks. But here's the thing, is that everything that we do can be God honoring. You just have to change that way that you think. And when you start doing that, sometimes, for example, there are times on the weekends that I want to pull out my hair because my kids are driving me nuts. And there are moments that I literally just take a deep breath and I'll say a little prayer in my head. And I'm like, God, thank you for my kids. I'm really tired right now. Please give me the strength to push through my day. And I'm going to make them their little nuggets and make their little pizza and cut it up the way that they want to and do their laundry, even though there's a ton of laundry every day to do. And I'm going to do it willingly because I'm serving them, because God, you chose me to be their mom. What an honor that is, you know, that I was chosen to be a mother of 3. And with your spouse too, there are little things, I'm sure some of y'all can relate. There are little things that your spouse will do that just drive you insane. And while, yes, sometimes you want to point out their flaws, for me at least, I try not to do that as much as I can. But what I will do is I will do the thing that they are not doing, because I don't want to bicker about something that is so dumb. So, for example, he likes to leave the drawers out instead of pushing it all the way in. And so every morning I close at least 2 drawers from his bathroom vanity. It's like that all the time. He does that in the kitchen as well, and it drives me nuts. But I'm like, okay, I can just push them in because this is my home too, right? Or he'll put the plates that are dirty by the kitchen sink instead of throwing the trash, which is right underneath. And I'm like, argh! But I don't do that. Instead, when I see it and I have 1 extra minute that I would rather be sitting down, but I'll have that 1 minute where I'm like, okay, let me just throw the trash in the trash can and rinse out the plate and put it in the sink. Now, am I like this every time? No, I am not like this every time. Do I do this too? Absolutely. I'm not perfect. There's a bunch of things that my husband probably is super annoyed with. And I can tell you a few because there's things that I just don't like to do. So for example, if the trash can is full, I'm usually not the one that's going to empty it. I will leave it there in hopes that he will see it so that he can throw it out. I love you, babe. This is just how we do life. But yeah, there's things that you can be doing to serve others in your family, your neighbors, at work, with your coworkers. Do it unto God and it just becomes easier. And if you have no strength to do it, just do it like me and ask God to give you that strength and that patience to go about your day in a way that you can still love and serve others that way that Jesus would want you to do it. That is today's message. I hope that it blesses you because it's something so small, but we are all called to spread the message. We're all called to do things in our everyday life. Don't expect some big stage, some big thing. It is not always the case. And like it says in Matthew, he will call people from all walks of life, regardless of your education, of your status, of your wealth, of your age. It doesn't matter. God calls all of us to be his helpers here on earth, to do his work here on earth. So today's message is to be the light in anything and everything that you do. It does not have to be something extravagant. It doesn't have to be something that you have to leave your job for and go do ministry. None of that. It does not have to look the same for everybody, but be encouraged to start doing it in the small little things in your everyday life. I promise you, things look so much different when you start seeing it through those eyes instead of the selfish eyes. But what about me? What about me? What about me? Trust me, I get it, but try changing that. And yeah, I hope this message blessed you, and we'll see you guys at the next one. Bye.